2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Delusions of Grandeur. I am one of your hosts, but I am your host for today. So, let us say hello to Boris. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Kroll.
Hello.
Hello, Mo.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to the show for the first time.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. It's been a while.
Definitely. So today, I tasked the group to watch a film. Last week we covered Stephen King's Christine from 1983, and in answer to that, since my beloved picked Christine, I chose this one because this particular film I picked up at the time that it came out on DVD. It was a straight-to-video film, which is kind of surprising because it is a relatively cool sci-fi film. I think even better than some of the films that come out on sci-fi, to be honest. But it is a conundrum. But it is a film that was directed in 2010. By Eric Vallette, and it stars Shannon Beckner, Odin Thayer, Ryan Kennedy, and Melanie Papapula. And this is basically what it's about. It's about a malicious, shape-shifting, sentient car that devours its victim by tricking them into its cab, and it's then sent to a police precinct garage after a terrible accident, and then it stalks the mechanics as it tries to find a way to escape. So let's go around to everyone and see what their first impressions were. Kroll, I'm going to start with you this time. Was this a first time watching the film?
It is the first time watching the film.
Okay. And what were your thoughts on it?
I thought the production was really well done, and everything looked neat. I think the best part was the shape shifting, the different cars he turned into. The first one, the red one that he turned into, was my favorite. That's just the kind of car that I like. So that one was. I'd probably be tempted to sit in it too, but I mean, I wouldn't because it was someone else's car. But it's definitely I'd be looking at it. I'd definitely be looking at that thing because that's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, it's not my regular cup of tea. So I mean, I didn't hate the movie or anything. It was an enjoyable couple hours or whatever it was, but probably not one I would watch again.
Okay.
But like I said, it didn't suck or anything. It was a decent movie. Just
okay.
I wouldn't compare it to Christine. I think Christine's a masterpiece, but that's just my opinion on that. But
okay.
How about you, Boris?
Well, today was my first time watching this movie, and yeah, I enjoyed it. The similarities with Christine are obvious. I'm not surprised we went from that one to this one. Although, if we compare them, I do think I prefer Christine over this. It was maybe a bit more exciting, but this one was still pretty good.
Okay. What about you, Mo? What was this a first time watch for you?
Yes, it definitely was, and I quite enjoyed it, man. I thought that it was pretty rad, especially considering what it was. Definitely exceeded my expectations in terms because it seemed pretty obvious that it was like some type of straight to video or sci-fi channel type thing, you know, but
Mhm.
it's way, like you said, it's pretty much, it has a bit of that vibe, but on like the next tier, you know.
Mhm.
It's better quality than what you usually get from those, especially during that era. I really liked how it was kind of like, basically if you took Christine and mixed it with The Thing and like Alien 3, and then it did actually have a little bit of vibes of like Night Shift
Predator.
or Graveyard Shift, and Predator as well. Yeah. So basically, you know, if you took Christine, The Thing, Predator, and Alien 3, that's like most of it, you know, is that in a nutshell. And it's a perfect combination of stuff, man. It works really good. The car shape shifting around. The creature underneath the car looked pretty rad for what they were
Mhm.
working with. All the acting was pretty good. Script was pretty good. That Oded Fair guy is just like we were saying before we got in the broadcast here. He's always kind of a treat. He plays a good slimy villain type
Well, yeah.
character.
I remember him in Deuce Bigelow Male Gigolo, along with the European Gigolo, but he was also in The Mummy and The Mummy Returns.
Yeah, he's kind
As
of
that Arab
underrated,
dude.
even, I would say. I'm surprised you don't hear people talk about him. Like, he's a solid villain character, you know. But yeah, that's what mostly struck me, was the different like elements from other classic movies that were in there, you know. And like I said, it's got a little bit of that vibe of Stephen King's Graveyard Shift, which is interesting because you put this in here as an answer to another Stephen King based thing, where it's like they're all trapped in this dingy dungeon of a place fighting this creature. And yeah, Graveyard Shift's pretty rad. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. Fighting a giant bat rat underneath a fucking cotton mill. Lots of good stuff, though. I mean, the only thing that I could say as a gripe would be that there was a lack of like gore, but it is rated PG-13 and clearly was meant to be like broadcast on TV and stuff. So that's fine. You know, I'm good with it.
Mm-hmm.
That bitch lit herself on fire with a Molotov cocktail, so it balanced out.
This was kind of a sleeper a film for me. It's something that like I picked up out of the blue for like $10 at Walmart, like with a bunch of others, and I watched it one night and I just remembered the fucking thing inside the car, and like when they take the crowbar to the thing and it fucking lashes out at the others. That's what I remembered. Not just the shape shifting, but the fact that this was a heat seeking motherfucking alien changing vehicle that was just killing motherfuckers off at the get go, you know, and I had a blast with it. I mean. And I'm glad that I've been able to return to it. So, in the very beginning of the film, we get this non-distinct colored car. Actually, what I should do is actually like go through and like cull off all the different cars that were in the film. So, we had a Chevrolet Corvette C5 in there. We had a 1969 Chevrolet K20. We had a 1995 Chevrolet Lumina. We had a 1976 Chevrolet Nova. We had a 2001 Chevrolet Silverado, a 1993 Chrysler Intrepid, a 1998 Chrysler Intrepid, a 1971 Dodge Charger, a 2006 Dodge Charger, a 1998 Dodge Durango, a 1992 Ford Crown Victoria, a 1993 Ford Crown Victoria, a 1995 Ford Crown Victoria, a 1998 Ford Crown Victoria again, a 1992 Ford Taurus, 2000 Ford Focus, a 1985 GMC Suburban, a Hyosung GV 250 Aquila, which was the type of motorcycle that they had. a 1993 Infiniti J30, a 1993 Jeep Grand Cherokee, a 1973 Mercury Marquis Colony Park, a Mercedes-Benz CLK, a Lincoln Continental from 1969, a Kawasaki KZ1000P, a 1998 Oldsmobile Intrigue, a 1977 Pontiac Firebird, a 2005 Pontiac G6, a 2003 Toyota Corolla, and a 1992 Toyota 4Runner.
Yeah, it's stacked in the automotive end of it. Fun fact, actually, the last car that I drove before my current car was a 98 Crown Vic. All 3 cars that I've owned were Crown Vics, and I can understand why there's a lot of them in there because they're super easy to get a hold of. But I currently drive a 2008 Crown Vic.
So I wanted to mention all of those because there were a lot of freaking cars that it changed into, or at least that were sitting within the parked garage inside the whole thing. I mean, it's amazing how many cars they were able to fit in one single movie. You know,
it really is. It feels like somehow they had access to a massive motor pool, and they were just like, "How can we use this to make a creature feature?" And they pulled it off. You know.
Yeah, I definitely am impressed with the amount of cars they had there. I mean, you just listed all of them off. I'm like, damn, that was more than I even realized it. You know, because some of the vehicles, I guess, probably looked like other versions, so I didn't realize it was a different car. I'm not huge on knowing cars or the differences, so sometimes if they look very similar, I won't even realize it's different. But it's definitely very impressive amount of vehicles that they use in this. And, you know, straight to video is usually lower budget, and it seems like they definitely spent a lot more than what they would have.
Well,
normally, you know.
That red car that you mentioned in the very beginning here, the one that the one that you were all fired up about, the kids that got into the car after whatever, that was the Chevy Corvette C5. So, other than that, it didn't say the year.
I'm thinking they had to have just had access to some type of motor pool.
Yeah,
there is no way they could afford all these cars.
Would put them over budget, like by itself,
feel like
any other vehicle, because that is definitely an expensive machine right there.
If you notice, they only wrecked like the shitty cars, you know. So any of the really fancy ones were just there to spice it up. But I think like that with that particular car was kind of one of those, yeah, you can park it in an alley, but you better have it back here with no scratches on it or you don't have a fucking job anymore kind of situation.
Yeah,
I believe the very beginning car, the very distinctly gray black car, that was the Dodge Charger. That it started out with, which basically was the car that it kept going back to when before it like changed into everything, you know.
Yeah,
and I think that was like the basic model that they had to start with, and I thought that was a good idea to work with a non-distinct looking car at first, even though
it looked familiar. Yeah, I couldn't place like what kind of car it was. It just looked like something that I've always seen, but like I'm like, oh, that's and I couldn't picture what it was. You said it was a Charger, but I wasn't even, you know, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I remembered it. I've seen it before. It's not anything fancy or anything that I'd care to look at, but you know, people drive Chargers, so I've seen them.
Well, and it's a solid enough muscle car for like just a, like you said, a nondescript one. But then when you really look at it like close, it kind of looks mean as hell, you know. Like it reminded me a lot of the Death Proof car. Actually, we just were talking about that movie the other day, and I'm sure it's not even the same model of car. I think that might have been a Nova in Death Proof. I could be totally wrong, but it has like that old school model, like muscle car look to it without looking too elaborate or fancy. And I feel like they did do some stunts with it and damaged it a bit. So they might have actually had free run with that Charger.
Well, yeah, because after the kids get in the red vehicle, whatever happens to them, and then it changes back into that non-distinct Dodge car, and then gets in a fucking accident, and then those police are standing there, and they hear something from the empty car, and they're like, "What the fuck?" Well, then it gets towed to. Well, and I saw the sign on it. It said the 92nd Precinct, Chicago. So they're setting this in Chicago.
Yeah, and they're basically they work for the impound for the police department type thing, you know.
And if you noticed something, the guy that was there, Hector, I think he was putting up a sign saying that they were going into remodeling.
Yeah, and they mentioned how they were having painters come in, and that's why they had to move all the cars from the different level or whatever, so that the people could come in and paint it, make it look less like that fucking tunnel system in Graveyard Shift, all scary and whatnot, you know.
But what do we all think of that very beginning, where the two kids are walking along, and the car just suddenly changes behind them into this like really cool red car, and they get in it, and what happens to them? What do y'all think about that?
I kind of felt bad for the one kid. Go ahead, Boris.
Since I had watched Christine before watching this one, I kind of saw this coming. I mean, it was kind of obvious that they were going to get killed.
Okay. But what did you think about the way in which they were killed?
Well, yes, both says it does suck a bit for the one who didn't really want to do what they did. But yeah, as far as the way they were killed goes, I think from what I remember, we didn't actually get to see many details of it. We just saw them disappear or something like that, unless I mixed it up with another scene.
It was like they were enveloped in some type of black fluid, and so it made it look like they did just fade away into that, but that's kind of what struck me about it, because I assumed it was going to be more mechanical, or like the car was possessed like Christine or something, and it would kill them in some elaborate way of like getting them into a car accident outside of their control or something. I didn't expect them to get like digested. So right away I was like, holy shit, is this thing like a creature and not just an evil car, you know? So that immediately had me intrigued, just because I wasn't expecting that element of it.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
It's like it's like they'd gone into the stomach of this thing, and the stomach acids were coming up inside the car.
Yeah, all squishy and gurgly and shit. It was, whoa.
So they somehow the car gets impounded to the lot, and you see it actually on the tow truck, like smashed to shit still. And then the next time you see the car, it's like fully intact, and I guess it takes you to a viewpoint where it sees like infrared when that Hector dude tries to come and try to move it.
Oh yeah, the predator vision.
Yeah, that's the predator vision that I was. That's why I mentioned predator.
It kind of makes a similar sound to the predator too. Like when it's creeping around, that like clicky sound that it makes is somewhat. It's got to be like a nod to it. And she even says later in the movie too. She says the line, "If it bleeds, it can die," or whatever. We can kill it, which is right from Predator, isn't it? Like,
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they lifted that line right from it, which is fine. It's not like
I've heard that line in a lot of stuff. So it was just I've always liked that line, and and a lot of movies either use that line exactly or allude to it, like when
that's
Batman
like a famous element of Predator, you know. So like
we definitely
the combination of that and the infrared just makes it too much to deny, you know.
Well,
but like I said, they didn't ape enough from it to make it a ripoff. It feels like a tribute, you know.
Well, we definitely know that the car is a character, but before we get more talking about the car, let's talk about some of the main characters here. What do we think about Tilda as a character?
She's fine, you know. They kind of put in that whole pointless backstory part about her, like they allude to that she was in a psych facility once for like having paranoid delusions. And it just really facilitates
someone stalking her or some shit.
And it just really like is just there to facilitate Ray being like, I don't believe this chick. But he would have done that anyways because Ray was a sweet, slimy asshole. So it really doesn't affect how the movie would have turned out. He still would have locked them all in there to try to catch the car. So,
well, yeah, they make Ray out to be like this pervy car ex-military dude, and you can tell he's a little pervy because he's got his hands on that secretary's ass. You know.
Oh, it's great, dude. I mean, you know,
he grabbed that ass. He got himself some ass.
And squeezed that squeaky toy at the same time, dude. That was such a fucking savage movie.
Oh yeah, that was good.
No, Tilda's a fun character. I mean, she's got that like layabout boyfriend that she's trying to get rid of, basically, and the shitty boss. So she's kind of like that. She's a bit of a spitfire just out of pure stress of dealing with like douchebags.
Well,
so she's.
And I think that she's kind of a lone woman kind of a character, like because she drives a motorcycle to work, you know. So yeah, you can obviously see that you know she's kind of a lone wolf, if you get my drift.
They picked the perfect model of bike for her too. Like it looked feminine but still tough, you know. Like it's like a really elegant hog that she was riding around on. They didn't just give her like some gritty Harley or something, you know. It might have been a Harley, but I don't think he said it was. It's just, you know, it works really well.
I believe it was an Aquia.
Right. I think she's, as you know, in terms of female protagonists, they set her up right. She's easy enough to insert yourself into her viewpoint, even as a dude. So it worked. Really, though, Ray is what it's all about. That guy.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about him as a character?
He's a piece of shit.
About him?
He's a fun piece of shit, you know.
Well, yeah. What do you think about him, Boris?
Well, yeah, I definitely think he was a piece of shit. I must admit I hated him from the beginning because I always hate people who think they're better than others just because they have a higher position in a company or some shit like that. I hate that kind of people in real life, so logically I hate characters like them as well. And I must admit I was surprised when it turned out that he had been keeping them locked there on purpose. Not only because that really does make him the ultimate asshole, but because he wasn't only putting them in danger with what he was doing, but he was even putting himself in danger in the process. And for what? For money, publicity, or something like that.
Well, basically, so this Hector dude who went to go move this car, I guess, because it was part of one of the many cars that they had to move for this paint job that was gonna be happening. He basically disappeared, and so they sent this this other dude Al, which I believe Al was played. I'm not certain about this, but he looked like Patrick Swayze's brother. I don't know whether that was him or not, but
I'm not sure. I'll double check it.
but he tends to show up in like random horror movies from time to time these days. Forget his brother's name, but he kind of looked like him. I don't think it was him, but
Josh
anyways,
Strait is who played Al.
Okay.
He does have that. He does have that look to him, though. I can see where you've seen that.
Yeah. Al, I guess he goes and is told to go look for Hector and this car, and they all Tilda and her nephew and whoever that other guy was, that other mechanic.
I think his name is Gordy.
Yeah, Gordy. He they all end up like at this car, and they realize that it's warm, and just some of them don't know its make or model, and they figured Tilda would know because she knows a lot about cars. So she came down and she noticed that it was still warm, and basically Al went off to look for Hector, and I guess basically he gets eaten by the car and basically scares the group, and that's when you get that whole camera panoramic thing that they kind of do, because they look from Ray to Tilda to Gordy to her nephew, and he's basically saying, well, you're not going to expect me to like believe that a monster is inside of a car, do you? So he says he wants to go see it, so he with them goes back to it, and obviously there's no door handles on the fucking thing.
Yeah, that's funny.
And that's that's when I think it turned into the Lincoln Continental.
Yeah, it was a station wagon, and it didn't have any handles. And I thought for sure he was going to try to Dukes of Hazzard it for a minute, but he didn't.
Nope. So he tells Gordy to go grab a crowbar, and he does. And before they do, Tilda basically says, "Hey, Ray, just take and put your ear down to the fucking car and hear this fucking thing," because Gordy notices that there's no sound of any kind of an engine, you know.
Yeah, and he hears the heartbeat or whatever. That dude's acting choice there when he hears it and he jumps up like all startled and wipes his ear off. That's such a cool little subtle thing, because I could see myself doing that if I was like, it's kind of like if you ever touch a doll or something and you don't expect it to have like a real flesh feel to it or something, and then it does, and you're kind of like, ooh, you know, like it's alive when it shouldn't be, kind of a thing. I could see wiping the ear off like that was super gross, that I just listened to this car's heart, you know.
Yeah. Well, anyways, they grabbed the crowbar and they managed to like wedge a little bit of it open. And oh my god, the fucking thing! You saw it with like squid arms and teeth, and it just like reared its fucking head at them, and that's when they started running, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's where all shit kind of breaks loose for a minute there. I like that they didn't drag out the whole, oh, we don't believe her thing for too long. They're pretty economic with their use of time in this, you know. Like other movies, they would have had it drawn out more, you know what I mean, where she's still trying to convince them. It really only lasted like 5 minutes or something like that. And then they're prying open this car and there's like a little shop of horrors situation going on underneath the hood, you know.
And it's at this moment that Tilda, they Tilda wants to call the police. Ray's not having any of it. In fact, he fully convinces the rest of them that he wants to hunt it down and catch it, basically, for
He
money
not only
later on.
convinces them, but he tells the secretary that she's gonna play a trick on her and makes her. So when Tilly calls her to call police, she thinks it's a scam, it's a joke that she's pulling one of the things that the guys wouldn't, and so she didn't believe her because he was one step ahead and had already told her that she's gonna try to pull a prank on you, so he was already got all the
anticipating it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So they basically start to gather supplies and start to, I guess, because ultimately they start to make what they call a what was it they called it? She referred to it as a tiger trap.
Yeah, I forget which country she associated it with. I'd heard the term before. I think exactly like that secretary chick or whatever, where she's like, "We watched Discovery." That's probably where I heard it. It's basically a pitfall. Some dope spikes at the bottom and stuff, and it's a pretty genius plan, really. To capture. I think at first they're going to try to just capture it in the elevator.
Yeah.
And then once, that goes awry, as you imagine it would, that's when she's like, we're just going to kill this thing and we're going to use the same strategy, but more extreme.
But I like the use of sound in here as well. Because there's a moment where it literally unleashes this high-pitched a guttural sound where it makes Gordy's ears bleed.
Yeah. That's wild.
And at that point, it was Tammy who looked to me and she's like, that's even hurting my ears.
I can imagine.
But what do y'all think about this hunt? Did y'all think that it was going to be a successful hunt?
I had a feeling it was going to end up very much in the way that it did, just because of how similar it was to Alien 3. Even with the multi-tiered warning system, they do it verbally in Alien 3 because they don't have access to a bunch of tools or things like that. But they use a megaphone in this one to let them know as the car is trying to sneak through. I thought that was fucking rad. And yeah, I mean, it's just so I had a feeling that they were basically going to end up in the pit with the car because that's how Alien 3 goes,
And then, of course, you get that scientific belief of the nephews that he heard about this underwater squid that supposedly it could turn itself into and camouflage itself as anything it wanted.
Pretty much, it's a real creature. It's not made up for the movie, too. I forget what name he uses for it because it's a scientific name. But again, seeing those on the Discovery Channel, they fully will make themselves look like a rock or some type of a shell and just sit there and wait for something to crawl into it. And the most bone-chilling part of that is how he talked about how whatever this car is probably a more evolved form of that shit. Maybe they used to disguise themselves as caves or a hut on the side of the road or something like that. And people would just wander in there and get eaten. And then cars were its most latest adaptation, so that it could become an actual hunter on the move,
One of the things I wanted to interject was one of the things that Tammy wanted me to relay was the fact that she was disappointed in the film, partially because we never got where this being came from and why.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that, but also leaving stuff ambiguous like that is fun. I mean, I think that her nephew or whatever gave us as much of an explanation to pique our imaginations as we needed, you know? Like, it clearly was some unidentified type life form, probably lived in the deep woods. I mean, that's the idea that I got.
And
you know?
also, Boris and I were talking earlier, and he made a comment right back and said, "Well, you know, in Christine, we never fully got a reason why neither." You know,
yeah, I think her origin is. I read something about it.
She was born bad. She was
Explained
born
it.
bad of the bone.
That's what Tammy said.
Oh, it's true.
I'm sorry. I'm
You
sorry.
don't need to know what Christine's
I'm
childhood
sorry. What did you
phone
say?
He said that she was born bad to the bone.
Oh.
The song says it all, man. Yeah, so I felt the same way. I was like, at the end of the movie, I'm like, well, where the hell did
Yeah,
shit
but
come
where
from? I mean,
where did the evil come from? You know, where did it exist before? Did it exist like in a person while it was making the car? You know,
it's kind of like you're mentioning movies that it takes after, but you didn't mention is Venom. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah,
like a
you can
Venom
see some of that in there.
in that it's like you know, the alien is like a symbiote, you know.
Well, see, I like that they leave it vague because it allows you to imagine. You could say maybe it came from space. You know, maybe this is like basically
the
what he
description says an
described.
alien. So
maybe.
that tells you...
See, I
There
took
you go.
this film as an alien invasion movie. To be honest,
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Especially at the end.
Especially once we get to the end, but we'll get to that. So basically, eventually, after Gordy basically gets killed, they set about to go and trap this motherfucker in the bottom of the shaft of the elevator. But I like the traps that they set for the thing as the levels like go up, you know.
Yeah, it was neat.
Because it had to roll over those tire tacks, and then it also had to like hit certain things in order to let them know that it had gone up a level, you know.
Right. I mean, and it is rad, and I thought it was super cute. The car like trying to sneak under the chains. That is one of the only moments where it's like the logic, I guess, of it falls apart a little bit. Because why wouldn't it just transform into something else to?
And
go
you notice it got hurt
them,
the first. It got hurt the first time because it didn't expect the fucking nails in the fucking thing, you know?
And then on like the second one, it transformed its wheels into like some type of hard rock like substance to go over them or whatever. So, but I mean, again, that begs the question of why wouldn't it just transform into like its alien form and just wriggle around these chains instead of
maybe it's trapped within this form for some freaking reason in the form of a car, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if it's like evolution, like he said, and it eventually evolved into that, it's possible it could take it some time to not be in Autobot mode.
Maybe because there was no water. Remember when it took its real form, it was above water. Maybe it has something to do with that.
It very well could, and the whole squid connection.
I do love the fact that they mention Transformers without actually mentioning them. They said, they said that it can transform. Like he's like those cars from outer space. You know, you knew they were talking about the Transformers, the Autobots and stuff. And you know, it was a nice nod to that movie without actually calling it out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. this film definitely played on many different movies in order to bring to the table exactly what it wanted to bring to the table, and that's when we get the whole oh fuck moment because her nephew. They tell her nephew to move this one police car, and he gets in, and they realize that the police car is actually way ahead of them, and that the car has actually transformed itself into the fucking police car, and now dude's trapped in the fucking thing. You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And his head is like out there screaming its head off, and it pulls off and goes around the corner, and you get that whole Ray fucking asshole moment again. Like every time you think that he's actually gonna be a good guy, he turns around and stuffs his foot in his fucking mouth.
Oh, I loved it, dude. Especially like after everyone was dead, and he was like, well, I think it's like what, 50-50 now? I think it should be more like 60-40. Like he's still talking about splitting up the money.
Oh yeah.
What a fucking slime ball.
Well, I think the worst thing is after that he pulls up the key and opens the thing to let him out. I'm like, really? He could have let them out the whole fucking time. He let everybody die just so he could try to get the money. I'm surprised she didn't deck him. I'm shocked she just walked away. Like I thought she was gonna deck him after he pulled up the key.
She already decked him before, like right after
I know,
her nephew
I was expecting
died.
her to knock him out. Like he definitely deserved to be knocked out at the very least.
Well, and she walks off with the shotgun. He's like, "Do you even know how to fucking pull that? Use that fucking thing?" And he basically shows her how to use it.
Yep. It's like you're still an asshole or whatever she said. And he's like, thank you.
Although, like I said, I found it quite mind-blowing that he was not only putting all in danger for money, but including himself. Like, otherwise, when you have such an asshole character, they would usually make sure to save their own ass, and they wouldn't care what happens to the others. But this one even put himself in danger for money, so that was surprising.
One thing I wanted to mention before we even go even further is the writer of this movie, which I made aware to Moby beforehand that the writer is actually the writer of the screenplay for 13 Ghosts, the remake.
Ooh.
But he even goes back to the television series called Monsters from the 1980s, which was he wrote 3 or 4 episodes for that series, which ran from 1988 to 1991, which, believe it or not, was I think the first season of that was like a carry on from Tales from the Dark Side. Some of those episodes that never made it to the Tales from the Dark Side ended up in Monsters. And then he started working with Full Moon.
Yeah.
On Zarkor the Invader, head of the he did the screenplay, and back then he went under the name of Benjamin Carr. So he used pseudonyms throughout his career. His name was Neil Marshall Stevens.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of those, there's several Full Moon directors that do. And J.R. Bookwalter, I think, is another dude that would use them sometimes on like his crappier movies. You know, they didn't have IMDb back then, so people could forget that you did it if it was something you didn't, weren't the proudest.
Yeah,
of.
for Trophy Heads, he wrote under the name Roger Barron.
Understandable. It's a fun movie, but I don't know if
He also wrote the Blade the Iron Cross movie.
Yeah,
so,
he's still
and that
working
was
with Full
recent.
Moon.
So
yeah, so pretty cool stuff. I mean, it's neat to see how varied his catalog of stuff is there. You know, because going from TV to Full Moon isn't that huge of a leap, but then doing like major shit like 13 Ghosts is a big deal. You know, at the time, and still that remake was like a hit. You know, it was a major studio movie, I think.
well, yeah.
So he made it in terms of being like a weird kid writing a bunch of horror movies for a lot of years, you know.
And some of the other films he wrote were Ragdoll, Sideshow, Stitches,
Yeah.
Possessed, and you even said Hellraiser Deader. So
yeah, got a Hellraiser sequel in there.
Ooh.
So he is pretty prolific, and I thought that was kind of cool that the writer behind this film, which it's a random film, you know, for him to be underneath or have it to be written by the dude, but but
and he did do a good job. You know, the script itself was pretty damn good. I mean, sure, there was like one or two people in the movie that didn't quite have the acting chops to pull it off, you know, but in terms of just the writing, it was a well-written little horror film, I thought.
I kind of expected the moment when the secretary came out, and she was she came out with one of those Molotovs.
Yeah, I love that.
It just literally bounced off and came right back at her and lit her on fire, and she just fell in a fury of flames
and got impaled.
But I thought she was actually a pretty cute actress.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In fact, I thought she was cuter than Tilda.
That was actually my favorite death scene.
Ooh.
All I kept thinking when she was on fire was stop, drop, and roll.
Okay. I was thinking that too.
Then she does drop. And I'm like, well, she forgot to stop and roll. dropped in the pit and got herself impaled. Yeah, I don't know why she was just running around freaking out. Like, really, people don't know to stop and drop and roll. Like, I learned that as a kid in school. It's
well, these days, kids aren't taught what we were taught in schools. Everything they learn is learned from an iPad these days. So, how can you expect the later generation to learn what we were set in stone with?
Quite an iPad child, a little older than an iPad child. She wasn't old, but she's definitely in her late 20s. So she should have definitely been past the before the iPads were the thing to teach people. So she should have.
I think it was supposed to be like she's like the airheaded secretary, because there's that joke earlier in the movie where they say
too smart in other areas, so like
more tits than brains.
Well, they do have a pretty funny joke earlier on where he's like, there's a reason like secretaries' breaks are only so long, and she's like, well, because any longer you'd have to retrain them, right? Like, and yeah, I thought that was pretty clever, but yeah, that's easily the best death in the movie, I think, is her lighting herself on fire.
Yeah.
That's the kind of, like you said, lackluster, not a lot of gore. They were just, deaths, but basically by the alien, except for the beginning. He like crashes himself into all these other cars and shit, but the Molotov, just bounces off the car. And and she's on fire. And
dude, that says something startling about like TV censors too, because it seemed like it was formulated so it could be on TV. I'm sure it probably was several times.
I believe that this was a movie that did eventually end up on Sci-Fi Channel, but it was not fronted by Sci-Fi Channel in the least. It came to direct to video first. So,
right. But point being, even with that, like, the way it's, the kills with, you're better off showing someone light themselves on fire than you are showing the fantastical deaths with the alien, because that's just the type of logic TV censors use too, right? Like, oh, sure, she can light herself on fire. You just can't show the monster actually like squishing
chomping on them.
Yeah.
You can't show the bloody bitty gory parts. You can show a little blood too, but and actually the only blood you really saw was from the alien itself.
I think we saw some like after it felt like there was like blood leaking out of the trunk when it got rolled over, but it was all like after the fact type blood,
Do have to mention the death of Gordy. Though I thought that was pretty cool, where the car just ramped itself on its side and rammed into the electrical outlet, and the fact that the strobe between the strobe lights and the CGI'd electricity moments, you could see like bits and pieces of the alien in between all of that, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, the lightning part was really cool. I mean, always electricity, not lightning, but it looked like lightning, which I always love that. So that was definitely a cool scene that I enjoyed watching. And I was thinking when I was watching at the time, I was thinking that I'd probably mention that is my favorite scene. But of course, that was before I seen the fire. So so it's definitely my second favorite scene.
Ultimately, they did end up getting the alien car into that pit, and the moment when she fell to the bottom, and then literally Ray decided to be the hero, of course, and throw her the gun. And she basically shotgun shelled the car above straight onto the creature, and you got to see a little bit of the creature as it was impaled on the fucking pikes.
Fair enough. The animation on it was pretty good too. Go ahead, Boris.
We got actually, in my opinion, a pretty good sight of it by the end.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, like I was gonna say too, the way they animated it is pretty good considering. I mean, it's obviously they're not working with like a Marvel movie budget there, but the way they actually animated it in its creature form, where it's trying to crawl back up the pikes, and then that's when she figures out she's got to shoot the car down. Like, I was pretty impressed with how smoothly animated the creature was in general.
Yeah.
It was as animated as the shark dude in the new Suicide Squad movie was, so I thought it was pretty decent.
Yeah,
but ultimately they get up to the top, like you said, Kroll. He had the keys all along, and she started her way out the building. But then you hear the purr of these cars pass her and go towards the building, and her boyfriend shows up.
I love that part.
And he's like, "Hey, is my car ready?" She's like, "There it is. It's ready. Have at it."
It's all smashed to shit. It was great.
Actually,
and he's like, "What the hell?"
He actually asked her what happened because he was trying to get a hold of her all night. He was worried about her. He didn't ask about the car. She just put that out there because I don't know. She seemed to be pissed off at him, pissed off at everybody. I mean, he actually generally cared about her.
It did seem like it at the end. Yeah, he looked pretty shocked and concerned when he was finally there, which kind of made it funnier, because she seemed like she was pretty over his shit earlier in the movie already,
Well, yeah, because he was all whining about his car in the very beginning. So.
Yeah, and using his back as an excuse not to work, like his workman's comp had ran out, and
yeah, because she goes, he goes, "Oh, you want to do nothing to her?" And he goes, "Well, you stopped getting paid for that."
Yeah, that's a great example of the solid writing in this film right there. That whole sequence.
Well, And I guess, and this is spoiler alert. The pretty much end. They basically these three cars are basically driving in on their own, and you can hear the same sounds as if these are three other creatures. Like it's mom, dad, and sister coming and seeing what happened to their sibling. You know,
Right. Right as Ray's about to call the news to break the story, they all flip their lights on, and he's like, "Oh shit!"
I need to say, Dave, spoiler alert now.
Notice they left her alone too. They didn't do it with her to her. They just drove her and went to the where their sibling was, like you said, their family member.
This is a pretty straightforward film, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I did like all that it like involved all of these cars in some way, shape, or form, even if they weren't all physically there. You know, maybe they were able to put those cars in just by flipping the switch on a computer. It's possible.
Yeah.
They could have all been computerly generatedly there.
It felt pretty legit. I think they just couldn't have certain cars around when they were doing like dangerous stuff with cars. You know what I mean? Like there's certain cars that just make
they could showcase the cars.
Yeah.
And I realized that there were a lot of Chevys in there, so maybe Chevy might have been one to have like free advertisement with all like their cars showcased in this film. Free advertisement.
Yeah, no, whether that would be advertisement or maybe anti-advertisement, like, would you want to have a car that might have tentacles and rip you apart when you sit in it?
Well, the movie Monster Truck has a few tentacles that were fairly similar, except that was more Love Bug-ish than anything else.
Well, like you said, this is a pretty straightforward movie at least on the surface, it's a killer car movie, but they have enough nods to other movies, and it's pretty creative that they turned it into an actual creature, I think.
And I feel like it's its own animal, like its own creation, using all of these things and all of these.
Elements. None of it feels like it's just ripping anything directly off. I guess the closest would be like the Predator vision, but they include that little nod to it with that one line later on. So it's all of it's in the same thing with the Transformers reference. Like it's not directly on the nose, but if you know what they're on about, you're gonna catch it. That makes it fun. I've never seen a car movie where the car was an actual physical creature. It was always possessed by something. So
well, yeah, and I think that's what I like about this film, that it was in fact a creature, and in a way, because of the ending, even though it was very short and whatnot, there were others like it out there. So to me, that's when it became an alien invasion.
Yeah, I think you guys are spot on about the alien thing. I didn't really, initially like think that, but the more we've talked about it, I think though that the talk about its evolution, that could have happened on a different planet. It was just a similar creature to those squids that he was talking about. It's still just rad, I like that they don't nail it down. Like
basically, if you wanted to think about it from an outside perspective, it was an alien of some sort. It was on this planet for some reason, and it got hungry. It just so happened to get caught, and on its way out, it got hungry. So it came. It tried to survive under the elements, but unfortunately, it got killed along the way, and its other species noticed that it was missing, and they tracked it down to that fucking thing, and they're like, "Well, we're not going to let this fucking person get away with that shit," you know?
Yeah, I mean it's left open ended, so you can like put your own imaginings there. I mean, if they'd showed like a meteor crash landing at the beginning of the movie or something, it would have made it like a lot more nailed down to just an alien thing. But for lack of a better term, I mean, I could see you seeing it as an alien invasion thing. They could have done sequels to this if they wanted to, really.
Yeah, they could.
Indeed, the ending kind of does leave room for a possible sequel, but it hasn't happened so far, right?
No, this film was filmed in 2010, and I haven't really seen anything in the director's line of vision of directing in another thing like this. So if we get anything, it'll probably be from a different director down the road. But you never know. I mean, you have to get the rights to it and all that jazz in order to do that. You know.
And it is kind of such a random movie that the chances of that are probably pretty slim. I mean, like Dave said, you never know. It could happen. It's
just that type of a movie. I mean, it was one of those movies that they probably never thought that it was going to take on or anything like that. But now, it comes up in passing when I think of Christine, to be honest, because it's basically your revenge getting car, an evil car, basically.
Yeah, the list of killer car movies there's plenty of killer vehicle movies, but it's not like huge, so they stand out. You know what I mean? Like Maximum Overdrive or Christine or
Maximum Overdrive would be the one for trucks, and then the thing is there are killer car movies. There are movies with cars that are classic and they're like revenge films. Like we mentioned some of them last time, like The Car. That's one. And then there's also The Black Hearse, which was a 1970s, 80s flick that Vinegar Syndrome ended up putting a cool release. Crashed.
Yeah.
It was a decent one. But, you have your different levels of I think even Duel was another one.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of along the same lines.
Vanishing Point you mentioned before.
Oh, that's like more in just the badass road movies. I mean, there's a dude driving the car, but I mean, it's the killer car subgenre definitely has its gems, and there's been plenty of them, and it is cool to see someone still do one as late as 2010. I kind of tend to think of it as an older sort of retro style movie because most of the other ones are all from back in the day.
Yeah.
Wraith is even newer than that. Wraith is only a couple of years old.
Well, that one is that one's actually kind of similar, but it's just that the dude that's driving the car is also part of it. So to me, that one was done more in the style of coming and being a hero, for something that like the incident that happened in the film spawned this thing, this alien to resurrect that person to take revenge on the people who did it to him. So that, but I get why you're saying that it's similar, because it was an alien movie,
Yeah.
But in any case, let's talk about production. What did you guys think about production? Boris, what did you think about the production behind this film?
Well, I think it was pretty good. I liked the effects with the creature. When we got to see bits and pieces of it before we got to see its full form. And then when we did get to see what it really looked like and all the transformations and stuff, it did have some pretty cool effects. I liked it.
Okay. What about you, Mo? What did you think about the production value behind this film?
Overall, that it was great, man. I mean, the movie looked good. The locations looked good. They didn't look like prefabricated fake locations, you know. I'm pretty sure they just shot it in a real, probably shut down parking garage or something like that. Uh, you know, the effects, while awesome, were probably the thing that made it seem cheapest the most, just because it was obvious they didn't have like billions of dollars they were putting behind the CGI. Still looked great and was animated smooth as fuck, but you know, I think it's, if that was a little better, you could be forgiven for thinking this was a much bigger budget movie than it actually is, you know.
Yeah.
It's all put together pretty well and shot really well, and yeah, sound design was pretty good on it.
Okay. What about you, Kroll? What did you think about the production of the film? You're on mute there,
Yeah,
buddy.
I mean, yeah, I know. Well, like I said in the beginning, I thought the production was well done. You know, all the different cars they got. The although, like you said, you can tell that the CGI wasn't expensive. It was definitely done way better than a lot of movies.
Yeah.
It was pretty damn smooth, and the creature didn't look fake. You know, as I mean, obviously it's not real, but you know, it didn't look it. You know, it looked like it could have been a real creature, and you know, so it was really well done the way they did it, and with the imagined budget that they must have had. I think they did a absolutely great job with that.
Okay. While you're at it, why don't you give us one of your favorite scenes from here?
Well, like I said earlier, when the girl threw the Molotov bomb onto the car and bounced off and hit her, which I don't think could actually really happen. I would just fall, but it was a great scene. And, you know, and then she's on fire, and instead of stop, drop, and roll or whatever, she runs around in circles screaming until she falls hit and impales herself. So she finally does drop. Unfortunately, you know, that was it. You know, no rolling around or anything. She impaled herself. I liked her. I was expecting her to die a few times, and she didn't. I'm like, oh, maybe she'll survive. And I thought that right before she burned herself. So, you know, maybe I killed her because, you know, I thought maybe she might actually make it. But yeah, I mean, you knew the main character, the girl, she was gonna make it, and you had to figure that the asshole was gonna make it.
Well, I thought the production on this film was actually pretty viable. I thought it worked with what they needed. I always think that if you're going to work with CGI, use it sparingly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they did. I mean, they used it about as much as they needed for the film. It wasn't like something where they did it to the effect where you could actually fully notice that it was used. You know, but as far as a favorite scene, I like the electrocution scene a lot. Maybe it's because I remember a ride well, it was kind of a ride, but it wasn't really. It was an alien thing where as you were walking in, you were being told that you were going to meet this like alien commander, and it was in the middle of a room, and you got into the middle of into the room, and all these circles of chairs were there, and there was in the middle of the circle of chairs there was this chamber, and once you sat down, you were told that we were going to get that alien commander dude transported down to that middle piece, and all of a sudden the lights went out and flickered, and you start as your chair started shaking. You heard hissing. You felt water on your face, and then suddenly during the flicker, you saw like shit and glass like explode, and you realize that whatever came down had transformed into something, and that just reminded me of that moment, you know.
Right.
So it scared the living shit out of me.
Dave, you muted yourself.
Whoops. No, yeah, I can see that. They did a good job of using the flicker, man. It was well done. That would definitely be probably tied with the Molotov for my favorite scene as well. So
Yeah. What about you, Boris? What was your favorite scene from this film?
Well, my favorite scene wasn't actually. It wasn't my favorite because of effects, but the one I really enjoyed the most was when Tilda told Ray off when things started to get really bad, and she told him like, "You're not a platoon commander," or however she worded it. You're just a bully. When she basically told him outright that he was nobody special just because he was a boss, that he is just a random asshole.
yeah, dude, that'd probably be my favorite dialogue portion of the movie for sure. that whole exchange, it was savage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he looked like shit by the end of that whole thing, you know, like, ooh, that burned.
Yeah.
But my favorite, my favorite scene would probably be that moment. But my second favorite would probably be the moment that they tried to crowbar the car, and when we first see what the creature looks like a little bit. You know,
Yeah,
because it was kind of a jump scare.
Yeah, totally.
But in any case, did anyone notice the music at all?
I thought it was pretty decent.
There was some music, yeah. I remember there were some songs in the ending credits.
Yeah, there were some songs in the ending credits, but I'm looking up the composer here now. The composer, let's see. The music was by two different people, it looks like. Thomas Sobel and Martin Tillman. And it looks like Sobel. He did some stuff on The Day After, Alien vs. Predator, 2012, Collateral. So there is that alien connection. That's kind of cool. And then the other guy, let's see, Martin Tillman. He was on some of the musical department of Tears of the Sun, Face Off, Iron Man. Oh, he's more prolific.
Yeah, dude, he's done some stuff. That new Mulan movie.
Yeah.
A couple of Spider-Man flicks. It looks
All
like Pirates of the Caribbean.
All the way back to The Fan, Cats Don't Dance, Face Off, The Replacement Killers. But he's, I guess he, one of the things he's like hugely talented on is the cello. So, but he did some of the cello music in A Bug's Life, Tarzan, Mission Impossible 2, Bait, The Pledge, Hannibal, Shrek, The Mummy Returns. Okay, So he might have come on board with with that Odeth dude or
Very possible.
But yeah,
it's fine. I mean, like I said, it's pretty good. You know, it works. I didn't find it like super memorable, but there's a lot going on in this movie visually to be appreciating. So it complemented it well, I thought. There was a couple of parts actually where I kind of nodded my head to the music. I think during those chase scenes and stuff too. So
well, at least they went with a composer, instead of like synth music or some shit like that. Although I could have seen them do an '80s feel to it, you know.
Oh yeah, this would rock with an old synth soundtrack on it too. But yeah, they did. It was a fairly decent score for my money, I think. You know.
Oh yeah. So on that note, I think that's pretty much it. So why don't we go around and tell a little bit about ourselves? So Mo, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Mosley. I do a show called Full Moon Madness for my channel Drunken Master Studios. Been on a bit of a break over the Halloween season there because we just released a pretty large special episode at the beginning of the month. So we're going to be back at that soon here with some reviews, some pickups, and some pretty interesting stuff as far as print media and other areas of Full Moon collecting and content. So pop on over, check it out.
And you didn't know we were going to be covering something Full Moon related.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this could almost be reviewed like adjacently to that series with as much stuff as that dude did.
But in any case, Kroll, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm disabled, so I stay at home and watch TV, watch movies, play video games, read books, all that fun stuff. So I love coming on here and talking about movies. Love to talk about movies I watch, whether I like them or not. So I'm glad to be here, and it's been fun.
Though this movie has not been your cup of tea, did you like it?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, I like it. Like I said, I probably won't watch it again unless I'm like with someone who's watching it and I'll watch it with them. But on my own, I probably won't watch it again. But it was a good time to watch it the first time, where I didn't feel like I wasted my time. And as for the music, I thought the music was a little weird in the beginning, and then I just kind of forgot about it. So. That's just basically how I felt about the music.
Not a problem.
It wasn't like Christine. Christine's music fucking rocked. But yeah.
I feel you on that. So, Boris, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, as I mentioned in the previous discussion, my real name is Philip. My nickname Boris came from Joe Sherlock's anthology Dark Zone 13, where I played a part, and my character there was named Boris, so that's where the nickname came from. Well, I watch movies sometimes and discuss theories. As you said, and other than that, I'm an aspiring writer. I have an unpublished novel that I'm looking into publishing. And aside from that, I'm looking for a job. I'm unemployed right now, so yeah, that's it, I guess.
Okay. And my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, which is another channel where we go on and discuss many different films and many different genres. And we have fun while we do it. But Delusions of Grandeur is where all of the extra conversations come in hand. And I started talking about films with Boris here, and hopefully now that we're having these discussions here on Sunday, Mo can come and join us anytime he feels like it. And Kroll, you can come and do the same, and we can have some fun at this. So, next,
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Next week, I figured we'd do Kroll's movie, Star Wars, if that's okay.
Sounds
Which
perfect.
one?
Which one,
The first one.
Yeah, Star Wars, later
Okay.
renamed A New Hope,
I
but
got you.
originally it was just called Star Wars.
Hell yeah, that'll be fun.
Just wanted to point out that little
So,
fact that some people may not
Yeah,
know.
even though it's the sixth or the fourth one,
Yeah,
it's technically the
it's
first one.
episode 4, which confuses some people. But the very first movie was episode 4, so we got 4, 5, and 6. And I guess a lot of people dispute whether he intended to make the first 3 originally or not. I think he intended to, but maybe he didn't flesh it out as much as he should have. Because you do see little discrepancies between them, but that's neither here nor there. We'll come back next week to hear us talk about Star Wars.
Definitely. But I also moonlight under this podcast channel where I go on and give you my own thoughts on different films from time to time, and I also do video pickup videos where I show you exactly what I pick up at any given point in time. So check out both Delusions of Grandeur and Inside Movies Galore, and also check out Drunken Master Studios, so that you can catch some more badass shit going on. So, in any case, like, share, and subscribe, and hopefully you don't get into a vehicle at any given point in time in the future that you don't know is your vehicle.
Indeed.
That's a good point. The vehicle could actually make it look like it's your vehicle. Like if